The morning sun cast long shadows across the Quantico training facility as Admiral Marcus Stone stepped out of his black SUV. At 52, he carried himself with a quiet confidence that came from 3 decades in naval special warfare. His weathered face showed the marks of countless operations across 4 continents, and his steel-gray eyes missed nothing. Today was different from his usual Pentagon meetings and briefings. Today, he was here to observe something that had caught the attention of the highest levels of military command. Stone had received the call 3 days earlier from General Patricia Hayes, the commanding officer of the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School. Her voice carried an excitement he rarely heard from the no-nonsense general. She told him about a female recruit who was breaking every record they had on file. Not just breaking them, but shattering them in ways that defied conventional understanding of marksmanship capabilities. The Admiral walked through the security checkpoint, his credentials immediately recognized by the Marine guards who snapped to attention. He had specifically requested to observe without announcement. Too often, when high-ranking officials visited training facilities, everything became a show. Instructors pushed harder, recruits performed differently, and the authentic picture of capability got lost in the performance. Stone wanted to see the truth. Master Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez met him at the entrance to the range complex. Rodriguez was a legend in sniper circles, a man whose confirmed kills in Iraq and Afghanistan had earned him respect from special operations units worldwide. His dark eyes carried the weight of experience, and when he spoke about shooters, people listened. "Admiral, I've been training snipers for 18 years, Rodriguez said as they walked toward the long-range course. I've seen natural talent, I've seen dedication, and I've seen what happens when both come together. What you're about to witness is something else entirely." They approached a series of elevated shooting positions that overlooked a valley stretching nearly 3 kilometers. The morning air was crisp, with minimal wind that would make for ideal shooting conditions. Stone could see the various targets positioned at different ranges, from the standard 800-meter positions to the extreme long-range targets that pushed the limits of both equipment and human capability. "Where is she?" Stone asked, scanning the firing line. "Position 7, Rodriguez replied, pointing to a concrete platform about 50 meters away. "That's Staff Sergeant Sarah Chun, 26 years old, graduate of the Army's Sniper School, transferred to Marine Reconnaissance training 6 months ago. Her background is interesting, sir. Daughter of Chinese immigrants, grew up on a farm in Montana. Started shooting at age 8, hunting with her grandfather." Stone focused his binoculars on Position 7. The figure lying prone behind a massive rifle was smaller than he expected. Even at this distance, he could see the absolute stillness that marked a true precision shooter. Chun was positioned behind what he recognized as an M107 Barrett 50 caliber rifle, a weapon that fired rounds capable of disabling vehicles and penetrating hardened targets at extreme ranges. "What's her record so far?" Stone asked. Rodriguez pulled out a tablet and scrolled through the data. Yesterday, she achieved 23 consecutive hits at 1,500 meters in variable wind conditions. Last week, she hit a 12-inch target at 2,100 meters with her first shot. Her longest confirmed hit during training has been 2,650 meters, but that was under perfect conditions with no wind. Stone lowered his binoculars. In his experience, exceptional marksmanship at extreme ranges required more than just steady hands and good eyes. It demanded an almost supernatural understanding of ballistics, wind reading, and environmental factors that most shooters spent years developing. For someone to achieve these distances in just months of training suggested either remarkable natural ability or something else entirely. "What's today's exercise?" he asked. "Progressive long-range engagement," Rodriguez explained. "She'll start at 1,000 meters and work her way back to maximum effective range. Today we're testing her at distances up to 2,800 meters. That's pushing the absolute limits of the platform and ammunition." Stone nodded. The M107 was an impressive weapon system, but Even with the best ammunition and perfect conditions, hitting targets beyond 2,500 meters required skills that bordered on the impossible. The variables became so complex at that range that even minor miscalculations could send a round meters off target. They moved closer to the observation area, where other instructors and advanced students had gathered to watch. Stone noticed that everyone present carried themselves with the bearing of experienced combat veterans. These were not casual observers, but professional warriors who understood exactly what they were witnessing. Chun began her sequence at the 1,000-meter line. Through the range's high-powered spotting scopes, Stone watched her preparation routine. She checked wind conditions using multiple methods, consulted range cards, and made precise adjustments to her scope. Her movements were deliberate and economical, showing none of the nervous energy that often affected shooters under observation. The first shot rang out across the valley, the massive .50 caliber round creating a thunderous crack that echoed off the surrounding hills. Through the spotting scope, Stone watched the target at 1,000 meters. A moment later, one of the range safety officers confirmed the hit through radio communications. "Dead center," Rodriguez said, monitoring the radio traffic. Moving to 1,200 meters. Chen's routine remained consistent. She took time to read the wind, made her calculations, and settled into her shooting position with the patience of someone who understood that haste was the enemy of precision. The second shot produced another confirmed hit. As the distances increased, Stone found himself drawn into the technical aspects of what he was witnessing. At 1,500 meters, atmospheric conditions became significant factors. Temperature, humidity, and barometric pressure all influenced the trajectory of the massive .50 caliber rounds. Beyond 2,000 meters, the mathematics became so complex that most shooters relied heavily on ballistic computers and environmental monitoring equipment. Chen reached the 1,800-meter line. At this distance, the target appeared as a small speck even through high-powered optics. The time of flight for the round would be several seconds, during which wind conditions could change multiple times along the bullet's path. Stone watched her spend nearly 10 minutes reading conditions and making calculations before settling into her final shooting position. The shot broke with the same thunderous report, but now they had to wait longer for confirmation. The round's flight time at this distance stretched to nearly 3 seconds. When the radio crackled with confirmation of another center hit, several of the observing instructors exchanged glances that mixed professional admiration with something approaching disbelief. "She's not using a ballistic computer," Rodriguez noted quietly. "All calculations are manual, using traditional methods. Most shooters at this level rely heavily on electronic assistance for these distances." Stone was impressed, but not yet convinced. Exceptional shooting could be explained by natural talent combined with intensive training. What he was looking for was consistency under pressure and the ability to perform when conditions were less than ideal. "What's the wind situation?" he asked. "Variable, 5 to 12 miles per hour, shifting between southeast and southwest every few minutes. Not the worst conditions, but far from ideal for extreme long-range work." Chun had moved to the 2,200-meter position. At this distance, she was approaching the theoretical maximum effective range of her weapon system under field conditions. Stone watched her preparation process extend to nearly 15 minutes as she worked through the complex calculations required for success at this range. When the shot finally came, the wait for confirmation stretched longer than before. Stone found himself holding his breath along with the other observers. The radio finally crackled with another confirmed hit, and this time several people in the observation area actually applauded. "That's 27 consecutive hits across multiple ranges today," Rodriguez said, checking his tablet. "Her consistency percentage is sitting at 96% over the past month." Stone was beginning to understand why this young Marine had captured the attention of senior leadership. Consistency at extreme ranges was the mark of a truly exceptional shooter, but what impressed him more was her apparent calm under observation. Many talented marksmen struggled when performing under scrutiny, but Chen seemed completely unaffected by the presence of observers. "One more position," Rodriguez announced. 2,800 meters. This is the absolute edge of what we consider possible under field conditions. The final shooting position sat at the far end of the range complex. At 2,800 meters, the target would be barely visible even through the powerful scopes mounted on the M107. Environmental factors would be magnified to their maximum effect, and the mathematical calculations required for accuracy would push the limits of human computational ability. Stone moved to the final observation point, where the range's most sophisticated monitoring equipment was positioned. Multiple anemometers tracked wind conditions at various points along the bullet's flight path, while atmospheric sensors provided real-time data on temperature, humidity, and pressure variations. Chen's preparation for this final shot was methodical and patient. Stone watched her spend nearly 20 minutes working through her calculations, cross-referencing multiple data sources, and making minute adjustments to her scope and rifle position. Her breathing remained controlled, and her movements showed no signs of the pressure that would affect most shooters attempting such an extreme shot. The gathered observers had fallen completely silent. Even the range safety officers seemed to hold their breath as Chun settled into her final shooting position. At this distance, success would require not just exceptional marksmanship, but also a degree of luck that many professionals would be reluctant to admit. The shot, when it came, seemed to hang in the air forever. Stone counted the seconds, knowing that the round would take nearly 4 seconds to reach the distant target. Wind conditions could change multiple times during that flight, potentially pushing the bullet meters off course despite perfect initial calculations. The radio remained silent for what felt like minutes, but was probably only seconds. When confirmation finally came, the simple words "target hit, center mass" brought a moment of absolute silence before the observation area erupted in a mixture of professional admiration and genuine amazement. Stone lowered his binoculars and turned to Rodriguez, who was staring at his tablet with an expression that mixed pride with something approaching awe. In 30 years of military service, Stone had witnessed many impressive demonstrations of military capability, but few that suggested the presence of truly exceptional talent. "Master Gunny," Stone said quietly, "I think we need to have a longer conversation about Staff Sergeant Chen's future training opportunities." As Chun began the process of clearing and securing her weapon, Stone realized that what he had witnessed might represent something more significant than exceptional marksmanship. In an era of increasingly technological warfare, the human element remained critical, and individuals with truly exceptional capabilities could influence outcomes in ways that no amount of equipment could replicate. The morning sun had climbed higher, and the shadows across the range had shortened considerably. But Stone's understanding of what was possible in human performance had expanded in ways he was still processing. Whatever came next, he knew that Staff Sergeant Sarah Chun represented something special, and the military would be wise to recognize and develop that potential. 3 hours later, Admiral Stone sat across from Staff Sergeant Sarah Chun in a small conference room adjacent to the range headquarters. The room was sparse and functional, containing only a metal table, several chairs, and a whiteboard covered with ballistic calculations from previous training sessions. Chun sat with the same quiet composure he had observed on the firing line, her uniform crisp despite the morning's shooting exercises. "Staff Sergeant, I'm Admiral Stone from Naval Special Warfare Command," he began, studying her reaction carefully. "Master Gunny Rodriguez has briefed me on your performance over the past several months. What I witnessed today was impressive, but I'd like to understand more about your background and training." Chen nodded respectfully. "Thank you, sir. I'm honored that my training has drawn your attention." Stone appreciated her directness. No false modesty or attempts to downplay her abilities, but also no arrogance. He had met many exceptional operators over the years, and the best ones shared this quality of quiet confidence without ego. "Tell me about your shooting background before joining the military," Stone requested. I grew up on a cattle ranch outside Billings, Montana, sir. My grandfather emigrated from China in 1962 and eventually saved enough money to buy land. He taught me to shoot when I was 8 years old, starting with a .22 rifle for pest control around the ranch. By the time I was 12, I was hunting elk and deer with him during season. Stone leaned forward slightly. What kind of distances were you shooting at on the ranch? Regularly out to 600 meters for cattle management and predator control, sir. Sometimes longer if we needed to reach coyotes or wolves that were threatening the herd. My grandfather was old-school Chinese military trained. He believed that if you were going to do something, you should do it perfectly or not at all. Did you compete in any shooting sports? High school rifle team, then civilian long-range competitions during college. I studied mathematics at Montana State University and shot competitively to help pay for school. My best competition distance was 1,400 meters, but those were controlled conditions with unlimited preparation time. Stone made mental notes about her background. The combination of practical ranch experience and competitive shooting provided an excellent foundation, but it didn't fully explain the capabilities he had witnessed. Many people had similar backgrounds without achieving her level of performance. "What made you choose military service?" he asked. Chen's expression grew more serious. "After college, I worked as a ranch manager for 2 years, but I felt like I needed to serve something larger than myself. My grandfather always spoke about honor and duty, values he learned in the Chinese military before he immigrated. When I enlisted, I scored high enough on the marksmanship portions of training to be recommended for advanced sniper school." "And your performance there?" "I graduated first in my class, sir, but I knew there was more to learn. When the opportunity came to cross-train with Marine reconnaissance units, I requested the transfer. Marines have a reputation for pushing limits, and I want to see how far I could develop my capabilities." Stone appreciated her honesty about seeking challenges. The best special operations personnel shared this drive to constantly improve, never satisfied with their current level of performance. "Staff Sergeant, what I observed today goes beyond excellent marksmanship. At 2,800 meters, you're operating at the absolute edge of what's physically possible with that weapon system. How do you approach shots at those extreme ranges?" Chen was quiet for a moment, organizing her thoughts. "Sir, most shooters at long range rely heavily on ballistic computers and environmental monitoring equipment. Those tools are valuable, but I've found that developing an intuitive understanding of environmental factors allows for faster adaptation when conditions change rapidly." "Explain what you mean by intuitive understanding." "Wind patterns, sir. Electronic instruments tell you current conditions at specific points, but they can't predict how wind will change along a bullet's entire flight path. I spend time observing vegetation, dust, and temperature variations to build a mental model of the entire air column the bullet will travel through." Stone was intrigued. This suggested a level of environmental awareness that went beyond standard sniper training. "How do you account for variables like temperature gradients and atmosphere pressure changes?" "I use traditional calculation methods as a baseline, sir, but then I adjust based on observed conditions. For example, if I can see heat shimmer at different intensities along the bullet path, that tells me about temperature variations that might affect trajectory. If dust is moving differently at various distances, that provides information about wind patterns that instruments might miss. That requires an enormous amount of mental calculation." "Yes, sir. My mathematics background helps, but it's also about pattern recognition. After shooting thousands of rounds in different conditions, you start to recognize subtle environmental signatures that predict how bullets will behave." Stone realized he was speaking with someone who had developed an almost scientific approach to extreme long-range marksmanship. This wasn't just natural talent, but the application of systematic observation and analysis to a complex problem. "Master Gunny Rodriguez mentioned that you don't use electronic ballistic computers. Is that a deliberate choice?" "Partially, sir. Electronic aids are valuable, but they can fail. In combat situations, you might not have access to perfect equipment or ideal conditions. I want to be able to perform with minimal external support if necessary." Have you given thought to how these skills might apply beyond training environments? Chin's expression became more guarded. Sir, I assume the decision will be made by others based on military needs. I focus on developing capabilities that could be useful in whatever role I'm assigned. Stone appreciated her diplomatic response, but he could sense the intelligence behind it. Chun understood that exceptional abilities brought both opportunities and responsibilities, and she was careful not to presume anything about her future assignments. Staff Sergeant, I'm going to be direct with you. The capabilities you've demonstrated are extremely rare. There are operational requirements within the special operations community that could benefit from your skill set. However, those opportunities come with significant challenges and risks. Understand, sir. Do you? Let me be more specific. There are situations where precise long-range interdiction can accomplish objectives that would otherwise require much larger force commitments. But those missions often involve operating in hostile territory with minimal support, sometimes for extended periods. Chen met his gaze directly. Sir, I enlisted to serve where I could be most useful. If my skills can save lives or accomplish important objectives, I'm prepared for whatever challenges that involves. Stone studied her for a long moment. He had heard similar statements from many young soldiers and Marines, but Chin's tone carried a maturity that suggested she understood the implications of what she was saying. There would be additional training required, he continued. Advanced infiltration techniques, extended duration operations, and integration with different special operations units. The training pipeline would be demanding, and not everyone who begins it successfully completes it. I'm prepared for that, sir. You should know that very few women have attempted the level of special operations training we're discussing. Not because of any policy restrictions, but because the physical and mental demands eliminate most candidates regardless of gender. Shin nodded. Understand, sir. I've never expected special consideration because I'm a woman. I only want the opportunity to prove what I can contribute. Stone was impressed by her matter-of-fact response. Many candidates became defensive or overly aggressive when gender was mentioned, but Chin simply acknowledged the reality without letting it affect her confidence. There's another factor to consider, Stone said. Exceptional operators often face unique psychological pressures. The isolation, the weight of responsibility, and the nature of the missions can be challenging in ways that standard military service doesn't prepare you for. Sir, I grew up spending weeks alone in wilderness areas managing cattle across thousands of acres. I'm comfortable with isolation and comfortable making decisions when there's no one else to consult. As for responsibility, I understand that precision shooting at extreme ranges means the difference between success and failure often comes down to my personal performance. Stone realized that Chen had thought deeply about these issues. Her responses showed an understanding of both the technical and psychological aspects of advanced special operations work. If you were to pursue this path, your training would likely take place at several different facilities over the course of 18 months. You would work with various special operations units, learning different approaches and techniques. The goal would be to develop you into someone who could integrate seamlessly with different teams as mission requirements dictated. That sounds like an incredible learning opportunity, sir. It would also mean giving up any predictable lifestyle or relationships. Special operations personnel often face extended deployments with little notice and minimal contact with family or friends. Chen was quiet for a moment before responding. Sir, I don't have family commitments that would be affected. My grandfather passed away last year, and my parents understand that military service involves sacrifices. I'm prepared for whatever level of commitment the mission requires. Stone felt a mixture of admiration and concern. Chen clearly possessed the technical skills and mental discipline required for advanced special operations, but her willingness to embrace such a demanding path suggested either exceptional dedication or a lack of understanding about the personal costs involved. Staff Sergeant, I want you to take some time to think about this conversation. Don't give me an answer today. Talk to people you trust, consider all the implications, and then let me know your decision. Sir, I appreciate the opportunity to consider this carefully, but I can tell you that my answer will be yes. This represents exactly the kind of challenge I was hoping to find in military service. Stone handed her his business card. Call me in 1 week with your final decision. If you choose to proceed, I'll initiate the necessary paperwork to begin your advanced training pipeline. As Chen left the conference room, Stone remained seated, considering what he had learned. Her technical capabilities were undeniable, her mental approach was sophisticated, and her personal commitment appeared absolute. Yet he couldn't shake a feeling of concern about launching such a young person into the demanding world of special operations. He thought about the missions that might require her unique skills and the environments where she would operate. The challenges would be unlike anything she had faced, regardless of her ranch background and military training. But the military needed people with exceptional capabilities, and Chen represented a rare combination of technical skill and personal dedication. Stone pulled out his phone and began composing a message to his colleagues at Naval Special Warfare Command. Within the hour, the process of evaluating Sarah Chun for advanced special operations training would begin, setting in motion events that would test both her capabilities and her commitment in ways neither of them could fully anticipate. 6 months later, Staff Sergeant Sarah Chun found herself lying in thick mud beside a swamp in the Florida Everglades, her body covered in camouflage netting and natural vegetation. It was her 15th day of the Advanced Reconnaissance Course at Eglin Air Force Base, and every muscle in her body ached from weeks of constant movement and minimal sleep. The morning air was thick with humidity and mosquitoes, but Chen remained perfectly still, focused on the target area 1,800 meters away through her scope. This exercise was different from anything she had experienced during her previous training. Instead of shooting at static targets under controlled conditions, she was tracking a team of role players who moved unpredictably through dense terrain while she maintained surveillance from concealed positions. The mission required her to gather intelligence while remaining completely undetected, then provide precision fire support if the situation demanded it. Chen had been in position for 6 hours, watching a mock enemy compound through a rifle scope. The facility consisted of several buildings connected by covered walkways, with sentries posted at irregular intervals. Her mission was to identify key personnel, map their movement patterns, and be prepared to eliminate specific targets if ordered. Through her radio earpiece, she heard the voice of Captain Jake Morrison, the Navy SEAL instructor who had been pushing her limits for the past month. Morrison was a 20-year veteran of special operations with combat experience across 3 different theaters. His reputation for demanding perfection had initially intimidated Chun, but she had come to appreciate his relentless focus on excellence. Overwatch, this is Control. Report status of primary targets. Morrison's voice crackled through the encrypted communication system. Chen keyed her radio with a barely audible click. Control, Overwatch. Target Alpha moved from Building 2 to Building 3 at 0847. Target Bravo remains in Building 1. Observed through South Window at 0902. Target Charlie has not been visual since 0823. Copy. Continue surveillance. Stand by for possible engagement orders. Chen acknowledged and returned her attention to the compound. This type of mission required a completely different mindset from range shooting. Instead of focusing on a single perfect shot, she had to maintain awareness of multiple targets while staying hidden from counter-surveillance teams that were actively hunting for her position. The training pipeline that Admiral Stone had initiated had been more demanding than Chun had anticipated. The first month at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado had focused on physical conditioning and basic special operations skills. Chen had struggled initially with some of the maritime operations, having grown up in landlocked Montana, but her determination and systematic approach to learning had helped her adapt quickly. The second phase had taken place at Fort Bragg, where she trained with Army Special Forces units in advanced marksmanship and infiltration techniques. The instructors there had been skeptical initially, both because she was a Marine working with Army units and because she was one of only 3 women who had ever attempted that level of training. But her performance on the range and her professional attitude had quickly earned their respect. Now, she was in the final phase of assessment, working with SEAL teams in scenarios that simulated real-world special operations missions. The Florida training environment was deliberately challenging, combining difficult terrain with weather conditions that tested both equipment and human endurance. Chun adjusted her position slightly to relieve pressure on her left shoulder, moving with the deliberate care that weeks of training had ingrained. Any sudden movement could compromise her position, ending the exercise in failure. She had learned that successful long-range reconnaissance required patience that went far beyond what was needed for competition shooting. Through her scope, she observed Target Alpha emerge from Building 3 and begin walking toward a vehicle parked near the compound's entrance. Her training had taught her to anticipate such movements and be prepared to engage if the tactical situation required it. Control Overwatch. Target Alpha moving to vehicle at compound entrance. Request engagement guidance. Overwatch Control. Target Alpha is priority elimination if he attempts to leave compound. Cleared to engage on my command only. Chin's heart rate increased slightly as she tracked Target Alpha through her scope. At this range, with variable wind conditions and the stress of a tactical scenario, the shot would be significantly more challenging than anything she had attempted on a controlled range. She began her mental calculations, reading wind indicators and adjusting for the environmental factors that could affect her bullet's trajectory. Target Alpha reached the vehicle and began opening the driver's door. Chun placed her crosshairs center mass and began controlling her breathing, preparing for the shot that might come at any moment. Overwatch Control. Target Alpha is attempting to leave with priority intelligence. You're clear to engage. Take the shot. Chin's training took over. Despite the stress of the tactical situation, her shooting process remained methodical and deliberate. She verified her scope settings, confirmed her wind calculations, and settled into her final shooting position with the same patience she had developed during months of range practice. The shot broke cleanly, and Chin immediately began tracking the bullet's flight path while simultaneously preparing for follow-up shots if needed. At this distance, she would have nearly 3 seconds to observe the target area before impact. Through her scope, she watched Target Alpha suddenly collapse beside the vehicle, struck center mass by her .50 caliber round. The role player immediately signaled that he had been hit and removed himself from the exercise, confirming a successful engagement. Control Overwatch. Target Alpha down. Vehicle neutralized. Outstanding work, Overwatch. Continue surveillance for additional targets. Chun felt a surge of satisfaction, but immediately refocused on the compound. Her training had emphasized that successful completion of one engagement was only the beginning, not the end of a mission. She needed to remain alert for additional threats while monitoring her concealment to avoid detection by opposing forces. For the next 4 hours, Chun maintained her position while the tactical scenario evolved around her. Additional targets appeared and disappeared, requiring constant vigilance and multiple precision engagements. By the time the exercise concluded, she had fired 8 rounds at ranges between 1,200 and 2,100 meters, achieving 7 confirmed hits under tactical conditions. When the all-clear signal finally came, Chun began the careful process of extracting from her position. Moving while carrying the 50-pound M107 rifle system required techniques she had learned from SEAL instructors who specialized in long-range reconnaissance. Every movement had to be deliberate and quiet to avoid detection even after the exercise had ended. Captain Morrison was waiting at the extraction point when Chun emerged from the swampland 2 hours later. His expression was unreadable, showing none of the satisfaction she had expected after what felt like a successful mission. "How do you think you performed?" Morrison asked as Chun secured her equipment. "Sir, I achieved 7 hits out of 8 shots fired under tactical conditions. I maintained concealment throughout the exercise and successfully extracted without detection." "That's an accurate summary of your performance metrics," Morrison replied. "But metrics don't tell the complete story. What did you learn about yourself during this exercise? Chen considered the question carefully. Morrison's debriefs always focused on lessons learned rather than simple performance evaluation, and she had come to appreciate his emphasis on continuous improvement. Sir, I learned that tactical shooting is fundamentally different from range shooting. The stress, the time pressure, and the tactical considerations all affect performance in ways that can't be replicated in controlled environments. What specific challenges did you encounter? The humidity affected my equipment differently than I expected, sir. My scope's clarity decreased over time due to internal condensation. I also found that maintaining surveillance while being prepared to shoot required a different type of mental focus than I was used to. Morrison nodded approvingly. Those are exactly the kinds of insights that separate good shooters from exceptional operators. The ability to adapt to changing conditions and learn from each engagement is what makes someone valuable in real-world missions. They walked toward the debriefing facility, where Chen would spend the next several hours analyzing her performance with instructors and reviewing video footage of her movements and shooting positions. Staff Sergeant, you've completed all phases of the advanced training pipeline successfully, Morrison continued. Your performance has been consistently excellent, and you've demonstrated the ability to adapt to different operational environments and requirements. Chun felt a surge of pride, but remained focused on Morrison's assessment. She knew that completing the training was only the beginning of what could be a very different military career. However, Morrison added, before you move forward, there are some things you need to understand about what comes next. Real-world special operations missions involve complexities and pressures that even our most realistic training can't fully replicate. Sir, I understand that training can only approximate real conditions. I'm prepared to continue learning and adapting as missions require. It's more than that, Morrison said, stopping to face her directly. The missions you'll be considered for involve situations where failure isn't just a training exercise. People's lives, including your own, depend on your ability to perform under the most extreme conditions imaginable. Chen met his gaze steadily. Sir, I enlisted to serve where I could be most useful. If that means accepting significant risks and responsibilities, I'm prepared for that. Morrison studied her for a long moment before continuing toward the debriefing facility. We'll see, Staff Sergeant. Training is finished, but your real education is just beginning. As they entered the building, Chen reflected on how much had changed since her conversation with Admiral Stone 6 months earlier. The young woman who had grown up hunting on a Montana ranch now possessed skills that few people in the world could match. But she was also beginning to understand that exceptional ability brought expectations and responsibilities that would shape every aspect of her future. The debriefing session that followed would be her final evaluation before receiving orders for her first operational assignment. Everything she had learned over the past months had prepared her for this moment, but Chen knew that the real test of her capabilities lay ahead in situations where the stakes would be measured in lives rather than training scores. 8 months after completing her advanced training, Staff Sergeant Sarah Chun crouched in a rocky outcrop overlooking a valley in eastern Afghanistan. The pre-dawn darkness provided excellent concealment, but she knew that advantage would disappear as soon as the sun crested the mountains behind her. Her mission was unlike anything she had experienced during training, combining the precision shooting skills she had developed with the harsh realities of combat operations in hostile territory. Chen was part of a joint special operations task force hunting a high-value target known as the Engineer, a former military officer who had been coordinating sophisticated attacks against coalition forces throughout the region. Intelligence reports indicated that he would be meeting with local commanders in a compound located 2,400 meters from Chen's position, well within range of her capabilities, but requiring a shot across terrain that presented multiple challenges. Lieutenant Commander David Walsh, the SEAL team leader, lay beside her studying the target area through his own optics. Walsh was a veteran of multiple deployments with a reputation for careful mission planning and decisive action under pressure. His team had been tracking the Engineer for 3 weeks, following intelligence leads across some of the most dangerous territory in Afghanistan. Overwatch, confirm your sight picture on the target building, Walsh whispered into his radio. Chun adjusted her scope and studied the compound below. The two-story stone building sat in the center of a small village, surrounded by smaller structures that could provide cover for security personnel. Multiple vehicles were parked nearby, and she could observe several armed men moving around the perimeter. Team lead, Overwatch. I have clear sight lines to all windows on the south and east faces of the target building. Wind is variable, approximately 8 to 12 kilometers per hour from the southwest. Range to primary target building is 2,440 meters. Copy. Intelligence indicates target will arrive at 0630 local time. Estimated 40 minutes until sunrise. Chun checked her equipment once more, ensuring that everything was properly configured for the challenging shot ahead. Her rifle was a specially modified M107 equipped with advanced optics and a suppressor designed to reduce both sound and muzzle flash. The ammunition she carried was match-grade 50 caliber rounds, selected specifically for long-range precision. The past 8 months had taken Chun from training environments to operational deployments across 3 different theaters. Her first assignment had been a 6-week deployment to Syria, where she had provided overwatch for special operations teams conducting counterterrorism missions. That deployment had taught her the difference between training scenarios and real combat situations, where enemies shot back, and mission success could mean the difference between life and death for friendly forces. Her second deployment had taken her to Somalia, where she had worked with Marine reconnaissance teams tracking pirate networks along the coast. The environment had been completely different from Afghanistan, requiring adaptation to new terrain and weather conditions while maintaining the same level of precision shooting performance. Now she was in Afghanistan for what her commanders had described as her most important mission to date. The engineer had been responsible for attacks that had killed dozens of coalition personnel and hundreds of Afghan civilians. His elimination had been designated a priority objective by the highest levels of command, and Chen's unique capabilities had made her the primary asset for this operation. Through her scope, Chen observed a convoy of vehicles approaching the compound from the north. The tactical situation was developing exactly as intelligence had predicted, but she knew from experience that even the best intelligence could be incomplete or outdated. Team lead, Overwatch. 3 vehicles approaching from the north. Count approximately 8 personnel dismounting. Copy, Overwatch. Can you identify primary target among the new arrivals? Chun studied the figures through her high-powered scope, comparing their appearance and movements to the photographs and descriptions she had memorized during mission planning. One individual stood out immediately, matching both the physical description and behavioral patterns that intelligence had associated with the engineer. Team lead, Overwatch. Positive identification on primary target. Individual wearing dark jacket, moving toward building entrance. Clear shot available. Walsh's voice carried new tension. Overwatch, you are clear to engage on my command. Stand by. Chen settled into her final shooting position, controlling her breathing and beginning the mental calculations required for a successful shot at this extreme range. The wind had shifted slightly since her last observation, requiring adjustments to her scope settings and hold-off calculations. At 2,440 meters, the mathematics became incredibly complex. The 50 caliber round would take nearly 4 seconds to reach the target, during which time wind conditions could change multiple times along the bullet's path. Temperature differences between her position and the target area could affect trajectory, and even minor variations in atmosphere pressure would influence the round's flight characteristics. Chen had spent hundreds of hours studying ballistic charts and environmental factors, but this shot would require all of her experience and intuitive understanding of long-range shooting. Unlike training exercises, she would have only one opportunity to succeed. Overwatch, team lead. Target is entering building. Take your shot when ready. Chen made her final adjustments and placed her crosshairs on the target. The engineer was walking toward the building entrance, moving at a steady pace that would require her to lead the target slightly to account for his movement during the bullet's flight time. Everything she had learned during months of training focused into this single moment. Her breathing became controlled and rhythmic. Her body position settled into the stable platform that would provide the foundation for an accurate shot, and her mind processed the complex environmental calculations that would determine success or failure. The shot broke cleanly, and Chen immediately began tracking through her scope while preparing for potential follow-up shots. At this extreme range, she would have several seconds to observe the target area and assess the results of her engagement. Time seemed suspended as Chun watched the target through her scope. She could see the engineer continuing his movement toward the building, apparently unaware of the danger, traveling toward him at over 850 meters per second. The impact came exactly when Chen's calculations predicted. Through her scope, she observed the engineer suddenly collapse, struck center mass by the .50 caliber round. The other individuals in the area immediately began moving erratically, searching for the source of the shot while taking cover behind vehicles and buildings. Team lead, Overwatch. Target down. Primary objective complete. Outstanding work, Overwatch. Maintain Overwatch while we assess the situation. Chun continued monitoring the compound through her scope, watching for signs of organized response from the security personnel. Her training had emphasized that successful completion of the primary objective was only the beginning of mission success. She needed to be prepared for immediate extraction while remaining alert for additional threats. The reaction in the compound was immediate and chaotic. Security personnel began moving frantically, some attempting to provide medical assistance to the engineer, while others scanned the surrounding terrain for threats. Chun could see that they were completely unable to determine the direction of the shot, a testament to the extreme range and the effectiveness of her suppressor. For the next 30 minutes, Chun maintained surveillance while Walsh's team prepared for extraction. The compound gradually returned to a state of tense alertness, with security personnel establishing defensive positions while vehicles arrived to evacuate the engineer's body and other personnel. Overwatch, team lead. Begin extraction procedure. Rally point Bravo in 4 hours. Chun began the careful process of breaking down her position and preparing for movement. Extracting from a long-range shooting position required techniques that balanced speed with stealth, ensuring that she could move quickly while avoiding detection by pursuing forces. The hike to the extraction point took Chun through some of the most challenging terrain she had encountered during her military service. The Rocky Mountains of eastern Afghanistan presented obstacles that tested both her physical conditioning and her ability to move silently while carrying heavy equipment. 4 hours later, Chun arrived at the designated rally point where Walsh's team was waiting with transportation back to their forward operating base. The mood among the team members was one of professional satisfaction, tempered by the understanding that their mission success had come at the cost of human life. During the helicopter flight back to base, Chun reflected on the magnitude of what had just occurred. Her shot had eliminated a target who had been responsible for numerous attacks against coalition forces, potentially saving dozens of lives. But she also understood that she had crossed a threshold from training to operational reality that would define the rest of her military career. Walsh approached her during the flight, his expression serious but approving. Staff Sergeant, that was exceptional shooting under extremely demanding conditions. The precision and professionalism you demonstrated today represents the best of what special operations can accomplish. Chen nodded respectfully. Thank you, sir. I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to mission success. You should know that your performance today will be noted at the highest levels of command. Operations like this one demonstrate the value of developing truly exceptional capabilities within our special operations forces. As the helicopter approached their base, Chun considered the path that had brought her from a cattle ranch in Montana to some of the most dangerous terrain in the world. The young woman who had started shooting gophers at 600 meters had developed into someone capable of precision elimination of high-value targets at ranges that pushed the limits of human and technological capability. But she also recognized that success in special operations required more than just technical proficiency. The mental discipline, physical conditioning, and professional dedication that had enabled her to succeed were the result of systematic development over many months of demanding training and operational experience. The mission debriefing that would follow would analyze every aspect of the operation, identifying lessons learned and areas for improvement. Chen knew that even perfect mission execution provided opportunities for professional growth, and she was determined to continue developing her capabilities for whatever challenges lay ahead. As the helicopter touched down at their base, Chen understood that her military career had reached a new level of responsibility and expectation. The skills that had first attracted Admiral Stone's attention had been proven in the most demanding possible circumstances, establishing her as someone whose capabilities could influence outcomes in the most critical situations. 18 months after the Afghanistan mission, Staff Sergeant Sarah Chen stood before a packed auditorium at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. The audience consisted of senior officers from all branches of military service, defense analysts, and distinguished guests who had gathered for the annual Advanced Warfare Symposium. The woman who had once been an unknown Marine sniper was now preparing to deliver a presentation on precision engagement tactics that would influence special operations doctrine for years to come. Admiral Marcus Stone sat in the front row, watching with satisfaction as Chun prepared her materials at the podium. The young sniper he had first observed at Quantico had evolved into something far beyond what even he had anticipated. Her operational successes across multiple theaters had established new standards for long-range precision engagement, while her analytical approach to tactical problems had contributed to advances in both training and equipment development. Chun began her presentation with characteristic directness. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 2 years, I have had the privilege of participating in operations that have demonstrated the strategic value of precision engagement capabilities in modern warfare. Today, I want to share both the successes we have achieved and the lessons we have learned about developing and employing these capabilities effectively. The audience included General Patricia Hayes, who had first recommended Chun for advanced training, Captain Morrison from the SEAL Training Command, and representatives from research and development organizations who were working on next-generation weapon systems. Chen's presentation would influence decisions about training programs, equipment procurement, and operational doctrine across the special operations community. The fundamental principle underlying effective long-range engagement is not just marksmanship, but the integration of technical proficiency with tactical understanding and environmental awareness, Chun continued. Success at extreme ranges requires systematic development of capabilities that go far beyond traditional shooting skills. Stone observed the audience's reaction as Chun described her approach to long-range shooting. Many of the senior officers present had extensive combat experience, but few had personal exposure to the kind of precision engagement that Chun had pioneered. Her ability to explain complex technical concepts in clear, practical terms was helping them understand capabilities that could transform how special operations missions were planned and executed. Chen's presentation included video analysis of her training progression, showing how her accuracy and consistency had improved through systematic practice under increasingly challenging conditions. The data demonstrated that exceptional long-range shooting was not just a matter of natural talent, but the result of methodical skill development combined with rigorous mental discipline. The psychological aspects of precision engagement are as important as the technical elements, Chen explained. Operating at extreme ranges requires absolute confidence in your calculations and equipment, combined with the ability to maintain focus under stress conditions that can last for hours or days. The audience was particularly interested in Chen's discussion of how environmental factors affected long-range shooting. Her presentation included detailed analysis of wind patterns, temperature variations, and atmospheric conditions that could influence bullet trajectory at distances exceeding 2,500 meters. Traditional ballistic calculations provide a foundation, but real-world conditions require constant adaptation, Chen said. Successful engagement at extreme ranges depends on developing an intuitive understanding of how environmental factors interact with weapon systems and ammunition characteristics. Admiral Stone was impressed by how Chun had transformed her practical experience into analytical insights that could benefit other operators. Her presentation demonstrated not just exceptional shooting ability, but the intellectual capacity to understand and communicate complex tactical concepts. During the question and answer period that followed her formal presentation, Chen addressed inquiries from senior officers about training requirements, equipment specifications, and operational employment of precision engagement capabilities. Her responses showed deep understanding of both the tactical and strategic implications of her specialized skills. General Hayes asked about the selection and training of personnel for advanced precision engagement roles. Chen's response emphasized the importance of psychological evaluation alongside technical assessment, noting that success at extreme ranges required mental characteristics that were distinct from those needed for conventional marksmanship. The isolation and responsibility involved in long-range precision operations can be psychologically demanding, Chen explained. Candidates need to demonstrate not just shooting ability, but the mental resilience to operate independently for extended periods while maintaining peak performance under stress. Captain Morrison raised questions about the integration of precision engagement specialists with conventional special operations teams. Chun described her experiences working with SEAL, Special Forces, and Marine reconnaissance units, emphasizing how effective employment required careful coordination and mutual understanding of capabilities and limitations. Precision engagement is most effective when integrated into comprehensive mission planning from the beginning, Chen noted. The unique capabilities that long-range shooters provide can influence every aspect of an operation, from infiltration routes to timing and coordination of multiple elements. Following the formal presentation, Admiral Stone joined Chun for a private meeting in his office at the War College. The room overlooked Narragansett Bay, and afternoon sunlight reflected off the water as they discussed the implications of her operational success and growing reputation within the special operations community. Staff Sergeant, your presentation today was outstanding, Stone began. You've clearly developed into much more than just an exceptional shooter. Your ability to analyze and communicate complex tactical concepts suggests capabilities that could be valuable in roles beyond operational assignments. Chen appreciated the compliment, but remained focused on practical considerations. Sir, I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had to develop these skills and to contribute to mission success. What guidance do you have for my future assignments? Stone considered his response carefully. Over the past 2 years, he had watched Chen's evolution from a talented but inexperienced sniper into someone whose capabilities had strategic implications. Her operational successes had demonstrated the value of investing in truly exceptional talent, but they had also created new challenges and opportunities. There are several paths available to you, Stone explained. Your operational record qualifies you for assignment to any special operations unit in any theater. Your analytical capabilities could lead to roles in doctrine development or training programs. Your communication skills could make you valuable in liaison positions with allied forces or in research and development programs. Chen listened thoughtfully. Sir, what would be most beneficial for the military and for the continued development of precision engagement capabilities? That's exactly the right question, Stone replied. Based on your performance over the past 2 years, I believe you could have the greatest impact by combining operational assignments with teaching and development responsibilities. We need to institutionalize the knowledge and techniques you've developed so that other operators can benefit from your experience. What would that look like practically? A split assignment, Stone said. 50% operational deployments, maintaining your edge and continuing to develop your capabilities in real-world conditions. 50% training and development, working with advanced students, and contributing to the evolution of precision engagement doctrine. Chen was intrigued by the possibility of combining operational work with teaching responsibilities. Her own development had been accelerated by working with exceptional instructors, and she appreciated the opportunity to contribute to the development of other operators. Sir, that sounds like an ideal way to continue learning while sharing what I've discovered. When would such an assignment begin? Immediately, if you're interested, Stone replied. We're establishing a new advanced training program for precision engagement specialists, and we need someone with your experience and communication abilities to lead the instruction. You would be responsible for developing curriculum, selecting candidates, and establishing performance standards. Chun felt a surge of excitement about the challenge of creating training programs that could develop other operators to similar levels of capability. Her own experience had shown her that exceptional performance was achievable through systematic training and rigorous mental development. I'm very interested in that opportunity, sir. Would I be working with students from different service branches? Yes, and potentially with allied personnel as well. The capabilities you've demonstrated have applications across the entire special operations community, and we want to ensure that knowledge is shared as widely as possible while maintaining appropriate security considerations. They discussed the details of the proposed assignment, including the location of training facilities, the selection criteria for students, and the development of assessment standards. Chen's role would be to transform her individual expertise into a program that could consistently produce operators with advanced precision engagement capabilities. As the meeting concluded, Stone reflected on the remarkable transformation he had witnessed over the past 2.5 years. The young Marine who had impressed him with her shooting abilities at Quantico had developed into someone whose influence would extend far beyond her personal operational achievements. Staff Sergeant Chun, Stone said as they prepared to leave his office, "When I first observed your shooting at Quantico, I recognized exceptional talent. What I didn't anticipate was how completely you would embrace the responsibilities that come with exceptional capabilities." Chun smiled. "Sir, I learned from my grandfather that talent without dedication is meaningless, and that individual achievement only matters when it contributes to something larger than yourself. The opportunities I've had to serve alongside exceptional people have taught me that my shooting abilities are only valuable when they support mission success and help develop other people." As they walked through the War College campus, Stone considered the broader implications of Chen's success. Her achievements demonstrated that identifying and developing exceptional talent could produce capabilities that influence strategic outcomes. But more importantly, her willingness to share knowledge and develop other operators showed the character traits that transformed individual excellence into institutional strength. The young woman who had grown up hunting on a Montana ranch had become someone whose influence would shape special operations capabilities for decades to come. Her journey from unknown sniper to strategic asset illustrated both the potential that existed within military personnel and the importance of providing opportunities for that potential to develop and contribute to national security objectives. 6 months later, as Chun began instruction of her first class of advanced precision engagement students, she would reflect on the path that had brought her from cattle ranch to the highest levels of military capability development. The skills that had first attracted attention would continue to evolve, but her focus had expanded to encompass the development of others and the advancement of capabilities that would serve the nation's security interests for years to come.